The morning sunlight poured through the glass walls of the towering Zenith Financial headquarters, gleaming against the polished marble floors like a symbol of power and success. Inside, people rushed through the lobby with tablets in hand, expensive suits brushing past one another, every step echoing ambition. But while everyone else hurried to meetings and deals, one woman quietly pushed her mop across the gleaming floor, her faded blue uniform almost blending into the reflections. Her name was Ruth Elkins, 48 years old, a janitor who had seen more struggle than anyone in that skyscraper could imagine. No one noticed her. No one cared that behind those tired eyes lay a mind that once dreamt of running her own small accounting firm, a dream crushed by medical bills, a failed marriage, and a life that had demanded more than it ever gave. Every day, she came to clean up after people who earned in a week what she made in 6 months. Yet she never complained. She just smiled faintly, hummed old songs while mopping, and carried herself with a quiet dignity that most people mistook for silence. Until one day, a billionaire noticed her, not out of kindness, but as a joke. If you believe that kindness and second chances can change lives, then take a second right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. The day started like any other. Ruth was mopping near the executive elevator when a group of young executives stepped out, laughing loudly. At the center of their circle was Marcus Vance, the 37-year-old billionaire CEO of Zenith Financial. He was known for his charm and ruthless intellect, a man who built empires with a smirk and destroyed competitors with a handshake. Dressed in a crisp white shirt and navy suit, he was the embodiment of success. Every inch of him radiated control, confidence, and untouchable wealth. But that morning, he was in a mood. The market had dipped, his board was anxious, and he needed a distraction. So when his VP joked about how even the janitors here probably know more about stocks than the public, Marcus laughed. Then he turned to Ruth, who was quietly polishing a brass panel. "Hey, miss," he said with a teasing grin, "you look like someone with financial wisdom. Tell me, where should I invest $1 billion? The laughter that followed echoed through the marble halls. Ruth froze for a second, her hands tightening around the mop handle. She didn't look at him right away. Instead, she took a slow breath and then turned toward him with a calm, steady gaze. Her eyes, gray and wise, met his, unafraid, unwavering. And then she said something that silenced the room. "Maybe start," she said softly, "by investing in people instead of numbers. The world's full of bankrupt souls and undervalued hearts. If your money can't heal that, then it isn't worth much at all." The laughter died instantly. Marcus blinked, caught completely off guard. The tone of her voice wasn't bitter or sarcastic. It was painfully sincere, almost gentle, like a mother giving advice to a lost child. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. The executives around him shifted uncomfortably, pretending to check their phones. Marcus tried to shake it off, forcing a chuckle. "That's deep," he muttered. Didn't expect that answer. But the words stayed with him long after he stepped into the elevator. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the janitor's words. Invest in people instead of numbers. They echoed in his head as he looked out from his penthouse balcony over the glittering city skyline. He had built a life out of numbers, profits, percentages, growth charts. But lately he had felt an emptiness creeping in. His father, who died poor but beloved, once told him that money was a mirror. It only shows who you truly are. And in that reflection, Marcus was starting to see someone he didn't recognize. The next morning, he arrived at work earlier than usual. And there she was again, Ruth, scrubbing a bench in the lobby before the building came alive. She looked surprised when Marcus walked over with 2 cups of coffee. "Mind if I join you for a minute?" he asked. She hesitated, unsure if this was another joke, but nodded politely. Marcus handed her a cup. "Listen," he said after a pause, "about yesterday, I was being arrogant. What you said, it hit me harder than I expected." Ruth smiled faintly. "That wasn't my intention, sir. I just answered honestly." "I know," Marcus said, "and maybe that's exactly what I needed." They talked for nearly an hour. About life. About how she'd once studied finance at a community college before dropping out to care for her mother with Alzheimer's. About how she lost her savings to hospital bills and ended up cleaning offices she once dreamed of working in. Marcus listened. Really listened. For the first time in years. He asked her, "If you had the power to change one thing about how this company runs, what would it be?" Ruth thought for a moment. I'd give people a reason to believe they matter, she said quietly. Even the lowest job has worth. But sometimes, when you're invisible long enough, you forget that. Something inside Marcus shifted that morning. Over the next few weeks, employees noticed subtle changes. The CEO who once barked orders now walked the floors asking people how they were doing. The janitors received new uniforms and better pay. Break rooms were renovated, and an anonymous Ideas for Change program was introduced, where any employee, regardless of position, could submit suggestions to improve the company. Marcus didn't tell anyone, but many of the best ideas came from Ruth. She wrote in simple handwriting, signed only R.E., and her suggestions weren't about profits, they were about people. A daycare center for employees with children. A scholarship fund for workers' families. A financial literacy workshop for low-wage staff. Slowly, the company began to feel human again. One afternoon, Marcus called Ruth into his office. She entered nervously, wiping her hands on her uniform. "You've been working here for how long?" he asked. 14 years, sir." He smiled softly. "You've probably changed this company more in a few months than I have in years." He opened a folder and slid it toward her. "This is an offer. I want you to lead our new employee outreach division. Full benefits. Better pay. You've earned it." Ruth's eyes widened. She stared at the paper, then at him. "Sir, I'm just a janitor." Marcus shook his head. "No, Ruth. You're the reason this place is heart again." For the first time in a long while, she felt tears rising, not because of the promotion, but because someone finally saw her. Months passed. Under Ruth's quiet leadership, morale soared. Employee turnover dropped. Productivity rose, but more importantly, people smiled again. She created programs that helped dozens of families climb out of debt, inspired others to pursue education, and turned Zenith Financial into a company admired not just for wealth, but for compassion. 1 year later, during a public press conference, Marcus Vance stood on stage beside her. "This," he said, gesturing to Ruth, "is the real success story of Zenith. A janitor who reminded a billionaire what true investment looks like." The audience erupted in applause, cameras flashing. Ruth stood humbly beside him, wearing a simple navy dress, her eyes shimmering. When it was her turn to speak, she said, "Money can buy comfort, but not meaning. We all need someone to remind us that purpose is the richest currency of all. I didn't teach the CEO anything he didn't already know. I just helped him remember." The room went silent for a moment before a standing ovation filled the hall. Even Marcus, the man once known for his unshakable composure, had to blink away tears. That evening after the conference, Marcus and Ruth stood on the rooftop terrace overlooking the city bathed in sunset gold. He turned to her with a gentle smile. "You were right, Ruth. Investing in people really was the best decision I ever made." She looked out over the horizon and said softly, "And maybe people just needed someone brave enough to start." The last rays of sunlight caught her face, highlighting every line that told a story of survival, hope, and quiet strength. She wasn't invisible anymore. She never had been. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. Let's keep reminding the world that kindness is never wasted, and that everyone, no matter how small their role seems, can make an enormous difference. Before you go, comment below what you would have said if a billionaire asked you for financial advice. Your answer might just inspire the next story of kindness.